right, 7 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I will let people in as we go. I do appreciate everyone that's here tonight, and we'll just go ahead and jump right into the presentation. Just to let you guys know a little bit about me, my name is Bill Moore. I've been in food service since 1977, so that's about 46 years worth of doing this kind of stuff. I was a corporate trainer for all those different restaurants that you see listed there, as well as I own my own different hot dog carts. We had a little cruise ship that we did meals on way back in the day, and a food trailer, and then also a restaurant. And I've written 4 different books about food vending, from hot dog carts all the way up to running a food business with multiple trucks. So tonight, we're going to be going over the second to last puzzle piece. So far, we've gone over the legal side, the number side, talked about partners and suppliers. We have talked about where you're going to set up, the different locations. We talked about equipment and marketing. And now this week, we are on to the business plan. So the question that I have up there, are you intimidated by a business plan? And I want you guys to think about a business plan. Does it seem scary? If you've never written one and all you've done is read or researched online, you could be a little bit scared about what a business plan involves. You may not have even an idea what a business plan is. But one of the questions that always gets asked in the group, and we just had one a couple of weeks ago, how did y'all write your business plan? Where do you get your business plan from? How do you do a business plan? And then always somebody says, it's just a food truck. You don't need one. Just go out there and wing it. And you can certainly go out there and be successful by winging it. But the problem is, you'll never know how much better your business could have been had you written a plan and followed it. The one thing that a plan will do is it forces you to think about your business in a different light. And when you start to think about it in a different way, then you can see some areas that may not work out well, that may have a little bit of fat in them, so we can trim the fat before we ever start spending real money. So the business plan is just showing you what the potential is. Ben Franklin said, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. And there's no truer words than that. Winging it just doesn't work. Even though somebody thinks they're successful, when you start to break it down and look at the details, they're not as successful as they think they are. And they certainly wasted a whole bunch of time. So there's 2 things I want to talk about before you even get into the presentation. Number 1 is, do not have somebody write your business plan for you. The reason being that you're paying somebody to write a really pretty narrative. They know exactly 0 about your menu. They know exactly 0 about the area that you live in. They know exactly nothing about the food industry in general, other than what they're going to research when they're trying to fulfill your order. And the order is, write me a business plan for a food truck. So they will send you something that looks awesome, but it ain't going to work because they don't know the details. They don't know any of your competitors. They don't know any of the pricing structure in your area. They don't know any of the things that you're going to have to deal with, because they could be all the way halfway around the world. Also, don't use ChatGPT. And that's just a version of AI. It's free to use, and it is fun to play with. I've gone through and asked it all kinds of questions. Here's what ChatGPT is. It's just a search engine. And all it does is summarize the most popular responses from the search engine. So when you Google something like business plan, you'll get, 1 million or more different websites that do business plans. And there'll be different information on how to write a business plan. So what ChatGPT does is it takes all of that information and summarizes it. And it summarizes it really quickly. The problem is, it's not really intelligence. Even though they call it AI, it's not intelligent. All it does is copy and paste and summarize what it's already been told. So if the popular responses happen to be, drive your food truck into a wall, and there's enough of those bits of information that show up as a popular response, it's going to include that as part of your business plan, because it doesn't know what's good and what's bad. All it knows is what's popular based on its ability to search the internet. That's why if you read the disclaimers when you're looking at artificial intelligence, it will tell you not to follow the instructions. I read an article last week that 35% of what the different artificial intelligence websites come up with is garbage. Problem is, you don't know which 35%. So don't have somebody else write it. Don't have Chat GPT help you write it. It's your business. If you want to shortcut away to failure, let somebody else write your business plan for you. So let's talk about taking away some of that intimidation so that you're not so worried about the business plan. There are two sections to a business plan. The first section, this is the one that scares people, because essentially this is an essay question. So if you went to high school, went to college, and the teacher was one of those teachers that didn't do the multiple choice nonsense, but actually wanted you to understand and have a thorough understanding of the subject matter, and they would ask you essay questions, a lot of students didn't like essay questions. I was one of those stupid ones that did like essay questions, because I knew if I wrote long enough, I would eventually either bore the teacher so they'd quit reading and just say, yep, he knows what he's talking about, or I would stumble across the right answer during my big, long dissertation. So I didn't mind writing, but all the narrative does is it answers questions, and it's got the human aspect. That's why the little smiley face is there. The narrative explains what the people in your business are going to do, it explains who they are, what their responsibilities are going to be, when they're going to enact those responsibilities, where you're going to be working, and then the how. How do we cook food? How do we market? How do we do the different things that produce the product that we're going to be selling to our guests? We were talking about hamburgers and hot dogs earlier. The business plan is going to explain how do we get the hot dogs off the grill and into the hands of a consumer? How do we market? Yeah, that's one section. That's the part that scares people. The other part, big dollar sign there, we're talking about the financial side. We're going to talk about sales and profit potential. That's what a business plan does, is it proves there is potential for the business. The sales become projections. And then, of course, you're going to project your expenses. And when you subtract the expenses from the sales, there's your profit potential. That's all that a business plan is, a narrative on the people and what they're doing, and then a projection of the finances. You can impress a banker with those, or you can depress a banker with those. In either case, we want to know who's doing what, and is this business going to be viable? And that's what the financial sections do. So now let's talk about, how do you write the narrative? The narrative is simple. Here's what you're going to include: an introduction. And you could do every single one of these as a bullet point, 2 to 3 bullet points under each of these different headings, and you're good to go. So we're talking about, 10, 12, 15 sentences. Now, this is a short business plan, obviously. But what sells a business plan is your depth of knowledge about your own business. That's why if you have somebody else write it, you can't impress a banker, because all you can do is reread what the banker can read. But if you write it, you can fill in the blanks. You can fill in the details. You can let the banker know what your thought process was when you wrote that bullet point. So the introduction, you're going to talk about the business itself. I'm going to start a Philly cheesesteak food truck. I'm going to sell, Philly cheesesteaks, a chicken version. I'll do a vegan version. I will do whatever. I'm going to sell it out of a food truck, or I'm going to sell it out of a trailer. I'm going to sell it out of a cart. You're just giving them a brief introduction into what your business is going to be about. Then you're going to talk about the team and how the business is organized. So the team, I'm the owner. My wife is going to be the vice president of the company. I'm going to hire 2 employees. I need one to be a cook, one to be a cashier. You're going to talk about the team and talk about what the team brings to the table. I'm the owner. I was a chef at some other business, or I have no cooking experience. My wife has all the cooking experience, but I have the business experience from. And you explain just a little bit about yourself, just like you would when you go to an interview. When the interviewer says, tell me a little bit about yourself, that's what you're putting under the team for each of those different team members. Then you're going to talk about the organization. The organization is your business. How is it set up? Is it an LLC? Will it be an LLC that's going to be filing its taxes as a C or an S corporation? Is it a partnership? Is it a sole proprietorship? There's good and bad in all of those, and I'm not going to get into the differences. But what you're explaining in the business plan is which one you chose and why you chose it and how it benefits your business. You talk about the organization. Who is the head honcho? Who is the second in command? Each of the different positions. That's all that part is. The team, a little bit about them, and then how the business is set up. Then the next section, the problem. And you'll see this a lot of business plans. If you go download and read them, they all will say something along the lines of, I noticed a problem. I realized there was a problem. And this is my solution. And that's all you're going to put. I realize in my city that there are no real taco trucks. There are no real Thai foods. There are no real barbecue trucks, whatever. When it could be narrowed down to a neighborhood, I realized that in this particular neighborhood, there was no mobile food at all. It's 8 miles to the nearest restaurant. And that's plenty of people, if it's a very populated area, to be able to make money. So you're explaining what the problem is. And then you're going to give the solution. My business will fix this problem by, setting up 7 days a week at this particular area where there's no food trucks. Or I will set up 5 days a week in this particular area because we have no taco truck or no Thai food or no burgers or no hot dogs. What you're doing is explaining the potential viability of your business to the banker or the person that's reading this, or you're just reinforcing it to yourself if you're not going for financing. So you have the problem, then you have the solution. How am I fixing this? How am I making this better? In the area that I live in, we have one of the highest concentrations of restaurants to residents and transients because we are on the beach. So we have a whole bunch of people come down here every single week compared to the amount of people that actually live here. So we have a crazy ton of restaurants. And when I looked that number up, I always kind of thought it, but then when I read it, it's like, oh my gosh, no wonder some of the restaurants here struggle. There is literally, in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, there's probably 70, 80 restaurants of varying sizes and not chain restaurants, but all mom and pop and chains. And then there's a whole bunch of food trucks. So when you start to account for those, you only have about a population of 15 or 20,000. You divide that out, there's not a whole lot of people here to eat. But what makes it good for Fort Walton Beach and Destin and all of those areas is we have about 180,000 people that come in every week. So now we don't have enough food. And that's why the restaurants through the summer are just jam-packed. Hard to get a good place to sit down in some of the restaurants. So that's the solution. I'm going to go where there aren't enough restaurants and then be able to sell my food to those folks. Or maybe I only want to open during the slow time when some of the restaurants close. People still got to eat. All the people that live here still want to eat. Or maybe my solution is going to be affordability. I'm not going to sell the $30 taco. I'm going to sell the $10 taco. So the next section, you would talk about your menu. What is going to be on that menu that provides the solution to the problem you just talked about? And you can do bullet points again, just list off, I'm going to sell hot dogs, 5 varieties. I'm going to sell hamburgers, 3 varieties. I'm going to sell, lemonade, 2 different varieties. Whatever you're going to do, you don't have to get into the ingredients and the specifics. You just want to give the reader an overview of what the menu consists of. And you can actually include the menu as a part of your business plan. If you've already got one drafted out and pictures and that kind of thing, you can include it to get them interested in what you're going to be selling. You got to know your competition. And I'm not talking about the restaurants. I'm not talking about, the convenience stores that also sell food. What I'm talking about is one-on-one food truck versus food truck, or mobile vendor versus mobile vendor. Who's the competition in your area? What do they sell? What do they do better than you? Because you have to admit that they will do some things better than you. If you can't recognize that, then you're not going to be real successful, because you're just going to think you're awesome and every decision you make is perfect, and it's not going to be. You will make mistakes. And there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is when you don't correct those mistakes. So understand who the competition is. You want to do a strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats analysis on each of the biggest competition you have in your area. And it's easy to find out who the biggest competitors are. Simply look on Facebook. Look for food trucks near me on your Facebook page, and you'll be shown a whole bunch of food trucks that are probably fairly close to you. Some of them you may not even know about. See what they sell, see what kind of prices they have, see what number of followers they have, and then go visit some of the really popular food trucks. What's all the hype about? I've got a sheet that's on the group file section that talks about doing a what I call a mystery shop, or a quick shop, where you just go up and it lists about 15, 20 different questions that you're just going to be checking out. Like, how long does it take you to get waited on? If it's a super popular truck and you step up and the line is 6 or 8 people deep, how long does it take you to get up to the window to place an order? How long does it take you to get the food after they have taken your order? All of those things add up to how good or how bad your competitor is. And then now you have benchmarks when you go check all the different ones. If your area is accepting of 10-minute service times, then you should shoot for 8 or 9. Be faster than the other trucks. Check out the food. Is their food got a lot of spice to it? Does that seem to be what people are after? Or are people more interested in the comfort foods that they recognize from home? See what the competition is, figure out how you can be better than them at what they do best, and then also figure out how you can make sure you don't go down the road where they may not be very good. You want to be better than them in all areas, or at least be on the same playing field in all areas. So you can check out the competition. Then the important question: how am I going to market to get more people coming to my food truck or my food trailer or my hot dog cart than everybody else has? Because we market to people. And we'll talk about the number of people we need in just a minute when we get to the number side, the money side. But marketing has to be in the narrative part, because it explains what you're doing to build sales. Marketing has to be in place before you can ever start to talk about the sales you're going to bring in. Because marketing, at the most simplest basic term, is an invitation for people to please come try my food. Once you get enough people invited, then enough people come to your business to keep you sustained and keep you profitable. But you're always having to invite, say, 100 to get 10 to come show up. So again, each of these different topics, 2 or 3 bullet points, and you move on. Now let's talk about the financial side, the number side. And this is something that I talk a lot about in our group. We have to figure out the sales and the profit potential of the business. The very first place you start is food cost. Your food cost in most cases is going to be either the biggest expense that you have or the second biggest expense, depending upon how you're set up. But in either case, it is a huge chunk of money you're going to be spending every single week. So we got to be able to understand what our menu prices should be to cover all that food we got to buy, and then have enough money left over to pay all the other bills. I like to do things simply. So we'll always talk about recipe cost. You sit down and you're writing that recipe for a hamburger. It's got a hamburger, it's got a bun, it's got cheese, it's got mayonnaise, less tomato, ketchup, pickle, onion, mustard. You're going to work out all the prices for all that and get a grand total for all the ingredients based on your area and the suppliers you plan on using. Somebody from San Francisco cannot ask me, hey, Bill, how much does it cost you to make a burger? Because no matter what I tell them, the prices are going to be different in San Francisco. So you're going to figure out what the prices are for your area and the suppliers that you are able to get to supply your ingredients. So if it costs you, let's say $1.50, you guys know I want you to sell that burger to get a 25% food cost. So if you have $1.50 into it, that means you're selling it for at least $6 just for the burger. That will give you a 25% food cost. Now, I still know, and I have seen somebody as recently as a couple of days ago respond with 33%, 3 times cost. They would be selling that same $1.50 burger, your cost at $4.50. The problem with that is this next section right here, break-even point. The higher your food cost is, the bigger this number is. So when somebody says, yeah, 33% food cost, they're wanting you to have more sales before you're hitting the break-even point. Lower food cost means a lower break-even point. There's a relationship between those two numbers that most people that give helpful advice don't understand. 33% food cost means that your break-even point will be higher. And actually, the last presentation I did on the business plan, I showed that math relationship, and it's a significant amount because you're talking about an 8% jump when you're going from 4 times cost, which is 25% food cost, to a 33% food cost, 3 times cost. Makes a big difference here. So we got to know that food cost, got to know the recipe cost. Because remember, we're still sitting at the kitchen table writing out our business plan. So we got to know what everything's going to cost us so we can now appropriately price the menu. The break-even point. The break-even point takes into account every other expense your business has. Many of those you can just call somebody up and get a quote. Hey, Mr. Insurance Dude, how much will it cost me to get my insurance? And they'll tell you. Some of the things you'll have to do a little bit of math on, like your propane consumption or your gasoline usage in your generator. I have a spreadsheet that will do that stuff for you. What my spreadsheet also gets you to think about is how many realistic days you're going to be open a year, as opposed to just saying, I'm going to be open 365 days. And the only people you're lying to is yourself. Because I know good and well you ain't going to be open 365 days a year. Because you got holidays where it will be absolutely pointless for you to be open. You're going to get sick. It's going to rain. It's going to snow. There's going to be a tornado. There's going to be a hurricane. There's going to be reasons why you cannot be open 365 days a year. So don't set up your break-even point assuming you're going to be open that many days, because you'll never hit that point. Because it's going to be a really, really low number, and you go, I can do that. But every day that you're not open means the other days have to make up for what you fell short. So you're just lying to yourself. Now you have a goal that you're not able to see because you haven't done the math properly. So I tell people, let's think about the number of realistic days you plan on being open. If you're going to be open 4 days a week, so 4 times 52, 220 or 208 days rather. So 208 days a year potential, but it's going to rain some of those days. It's going to be too darn hot to be out. It's going to be too darn cold. There's going to be a hurricane. There's going to be earthquakes. There's going to be something that makes you be closed. So we take that 208 potential, we knock it down 10 days, 20 days, whatever your weather patterns are in your area. Now we got a real number of days we're going to be open. And now we got a real number for the break-even point sales. So once we know the break-even point, then we play around with the break-even point a little bit. Break-even point means all the bills are paid. You can include paying yourself in the break-even point. Give yourself a modest salary. I was talking with someone earlier today about that on the Facebook group. A modest salary essentially pays all of your necessities so that you do not feel like you're getting up to go work on your food truck to make nothing. Now, I'm talking necessities. I'm not talking about you taking a vacation to Disney World every 2 weeks and going on a cruise every month. I'm talking about necessities. Electric is paid at your house. You got the groceries covered. You got gasoline covered for your personal vehicle. That's what a modest salary does. Now, you as a business owner get the profit. So business is paying you a modest salary, and then the profit that you make from having done a really good job at marketing and going beyond the break-even point gives you the fun money. Now we can go on the cruise once a month because we can afford it. So you got to have that modest salary built into your break-even point. Then we're going to take the break-even point and plug that into what does that look like guest-wise? Because if the break-even point, let's say, is $500 a day for 200 days a year that you're going to be open, how am I going to generate $500? Well, it's hard to generate $500, but it is easy to generate a guest count because we market to people. So we look at the average check. The average person that walks up to your food truck really should have a big dollar sign over their head because that's what they are to you as a business. They are a dollar sign. You're going to treat them like a guest because we're in food service, we're in hospitality. But the fact of the matter is they have a dollar sign over their head. We got to get that dollar sign out of them. So if the average guest is worth, just easy math, $10, let's say. So that means you need 50 people a day coming to your food truck to generate the $500 in sales. How do we market to get 50 people coming to the food truck? And I take it and break it down a step farther. If you're open, again, for easy math, 5 hours a day, you need 50 people. That means every single hour that you open, you need 10 people. I can guarantee you right now, 10 friends you could call up. You probably have more than 50 friends on Facebook that are local. So now you start to see a number that you can visualize. I can get 50 people coming. I can get 10 people an hour coming. Okay, so if it takes 10 people an hour, each of them spending $10, I will hit my break-even point. At 10 people an hour, that means you're waiting on one person every 6 minutes. That is a very leisurely pace for a food truck. You're not even breaking a sweat. Even if you have the most complex menu in the world, taking one order every 6 minutes is not being rushed at all. So let's play what if. What if we can drop that down to, let's say, 3 minutes a person? Still fairly leisurely pace. Now we double the amount of people that can come through the food truck, service-wise. So we go from 10 an hour to, let's get 20 an hour. We can still handle 20. One person every 3 minutes, not a rush. But I can get 20 people an hour coming. Now we've got a sales point, a sales goal that we can start to put in projections. How can I get 20 people an hour coming? That's my marketing. That's what's on the narrative side of the business plan. So we take that 20 people an hour, put that into the sales projection, and what do you get? It'll do the math for you, the spreadsheet. Well, it's in the file section, and we'll tell you how much sales you can do if you can just do 20 people an hour. We're building the sales projection from the ground up. We're not plucking a number out of midair and going, oh, I can do $1 million a year. Okay, do you know how much money that requires you to do if you're only open 200 days? I don't know that one off the top of my head. But I can tell you if you're open 365 days, it takes about $2,700 a day. Okay, so if you're only open 200 days, it's going to take way more than $2,700. to be able to hit that sales goal if you pluck $1 million out. But if I build it from the ground up, the number of people I need every single hour, 20 people an hour, I'm building it from the ground up. And then we just look at how many days we're going to be open, how many hours we're going to be open, and do the math that way. That's how the spreadsheet's designed. So now you have a sales projection for your first year, and it's built from the ground up on what you can reasonably handle. It's not a plucked out of thin air number. Once you have that number, doing the future projections become real easy, because all you got to do is adjust for inflation. And you can look on any number of websites that are saying over the next 5 years, we'll have this kind of inflation. Whether they're right or wrong doesn't matter, because you, as a business owner, will readjust your business plan at least every 6 months anyway, because you want to see where you are, so that way you'll know where you're going. So the business plan is always changing, is always being updated, because we have real information to put in the financial section rather than just projections, what we think we can do. Then once we have the real numbers, that may impact what the narrative reads. So we're changing maybe how we market. We may market more frequently. We may not need to market more at all. We need to check out new competitors. So a business plan is always changing. A couple of weeks ago, we had somebody talk about a business strategy versus a business plan, as if they were two different things. A business plan is just formally written out directions on how you're going to operate your business. A business strategy is directions on how you're going to operate your business that will produce a certain result. There's no difference. It is just semantics. You need to have a plan. You need to have a strategy. I don't care what you call it. You can make up a word for it, but you need to know how you're going to do it, and then what you're going to do if it doesn't work the way you think it's going to. It's just being prepared, having a backup plan. So once you have the future projections again, and you adjust for inflation, inflation adjusts your expenses. So then it's up to you to look at the predicted inflation and go, I think I'll have to raise my menu prices. Because when you raise your menu prices, then it increases your sales. And it all just goes up based on whatever you increase your menu prices. Just this year alone, I think the average menu price increase in QSR restaurants has been like 12%. And that was a lot of restaurants not wanting to raise prices, but they finally figured out that, oh, we need to, we can't pay the bills. They waited too long. One of the things that I tell people is we're going to look at food costs every single week. That's our second or first biggest expense. So we're going to really take it seriously. If the prices go up on the ingredients, guess what has to happen? 3 choices. You raise prices, your menu prices. You don't raise your menu prices and eat that increased cost, which the only place that comes from is what? Your own profitability. Or you decrease your portion sizes so that you maintain profitability. That's all you can do. 3 choices. Too many restaurants last year and this year said, nope, I'll eat the cost because everything's going to come down really quick, and they were wrong. I don't want you to ever be wrong. You react in real time. Every time you get an invoice, you're putting it in to see what it's doing to your profit and loss statement. And yeah, it takes a little bit of work, but I guarantee you, once you get good at it, it's 10 minutes a week, 15 at most. And that's if you decide to eat a snack while you're looking at the invoice. So that is my very quick version of how to do a business plan. I call it a lean and mean business plan because, again, go back one slide, we're going to be looking at the narrative, 2 to 3 bullet points under each of these categories. Then we're going to do the financial side, getting all this information plugged into it. There's spreadsheets that are built in the file section that'll help you do it. There's also another video on both of these, the break-even point and the food cost, somewhere inside the group. Once you have those elements You have a business plan. Now, if you present it to a bank, here's how you get a loan. Answer all their questions, because you will have some type of interview. It'll either be over the phone or it'll be in person. And they're going to want to test you on your knowledge base of your own business. And what they're going to test you on is what's written in your business plan. So if you had somebody else write it, guess what? You don't have all the information because someone else wrote it. So please write your own business plan, know the details, and your passion will sell the banker on this guy deserves a loan. He knows what he's talking about. And that's why you don't need a big narrative. You don't need a 40-page business plan. I respect people's time. And I'll tell that to a banker when he says, well, how come you didn't write 30 pages? Because I respect your time, because I know you're not going to read them anyway. You're going to look at 2 or 3 things and you're going to ask me a whole bunch of questions. So I respected your time. Ask me your questions. Let's go. Your passion, your commitment to your business is going to win that presentation. Or it could lose you the presentation if you don't know that much about your own business.